Yes, that's right. The Survivor Know-It-Alls are live here after episode 8 of Survivor Worlds Apart. Sorry about the late start for those of you guys watching us live. For those of you guys in the archives, you didn't notice anything.
Yeah.
Because
What do you
here we
care?
are,
Yeah.
Stephen
Yeah.
Fishback. Boom!
Boom! What an episode! What an episode! I'm doing my hashtag happy dance. Loved that. Loved that Survivor. Love that episode. So much to talk about. Big moves. A lot that went on here. A crucial vote. An idol found. Some alliances almost redrawn, but not redrawn. And the game. The game goes on. What do you think, Haley? Haley booted. Are you devastated, Rob?
No, I can't say that I'm devastated. I mean, Haley was, fun, and I know she was some people's winner picks, but she's gone, and definitely, I think that from a TV viewer, I wasn't ready to let go of Dan. Dan is so fantastically terrible that I was not ready to lose him yet. So
I'm just being nice. That's the greatest. Was that what he said? Was that his line to Shireen? Like, I'm just being nice. Your game is over. You can't do math. You're a horrible human.
Yes. Don't know what Shireen did to Dan to cause her to say that, but, I mean, Dan has given us so much gold this season.
Just close your mouth, open your ears, and just watch what happens.
Yeah, he's been fantastic, and so I'm not ready to let go of Dan just yet. So Haley goes. It was a night for you, Stephen Fishback, where the blue collar struck back. Blue
collar strikes back. Steven has moved one step closer to being the knowingest know-it-all. Yeah, I was great. I loved it. I loved it. I loved Mike.
You were great.
It was great. It was great. I said I was.
I think said I was great.
I was great. I was watching with my full attention. I was a wonderful TV viewer. I know it was great. It was great. Loved Mike. I loved what Joe's doing. I love what Tyler's doing. This season, and what do you think? I think this season has the highest overall level of gameplay possibly of any season. I don't mean that it's the best season. I don't mean that we have the best player. I don't think this season has a Tony. It doesn't have a Kim. It doesn't have a Parvati. I don't even think it has someone. People are going to hate me for this, but on the level of Russell Hantz, who is really emotionally manipulating people, but as a whole, I think this cast delivers maybe more than any other cast ever. What do you think of that, Rob Cesternino?
Well, Steven, I think that might be a little hyperbolic at this point in time.
That's what we're here for.
I agree with the thought, but to declare it here at Final 10, I'm not exactly sure. But I would say that overall, I agree with the sentiment. While I don't know if we have the highest high that we have in a season with some of the all-time great survivors, I do believe that the overall level of play is higher than many other seasons that we've had based on a overall skill of each of the remaining of the final 10, especially when we compare it to last season.
I think that's exactly right, and I think that last season is that's an unfair comparison.
An outlier.
But I think I think we should do this. Go through each of the people left. They are all playing their own game, and they are all playing hard, and that's why I think makes this season so great. You have this great Mike versus Joe rivalry. On any other season, that would be the driving dramatic force, but on this, you've got Tyler and Carolyn off to the side. You got Shireen. She's doing her own thing. And even Will, who is kind of the most clueless of them all, is he's flipping, he's flopping, he's got a game happening. So I love it. I'm loving it.
A lot to do here tonight. All right, let's set the stage a little bit. Of course, we're live here on RHAPisawebsite.com. We've got the chat room going, got hundreds of people chatting right now. We're also taking your tweets, hashtag RHAP. We'll get to them later on in the show. And also, we're taking questions on our YouTube channel at RHAPisawebsite.com/YouTube. Lot to do tomorrow, of course. Every Thursday during the Survivor season, I will speak with Haley, and we will talk to her about the Constitution, talk to her about the 13 colonies, and all of our other burning questions for Haley.
She definitely had some of the most original confessionals in the history of the game. I can't think of anybody else offhand who was given her sort of weird out there confessionals that that's why people thought she was going to win, was because she had all these like strange, very personal, very passionate confessionals.
Like, if we did a LexisNexis of Survivor, I'm pretty sure in 30 seasons of Survivor, I don't believe the Constitution has ever been brought up before. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Or the 13 colonies. And nobody has ever made the allegory of comparing the 13 colonies and the American Revolution to flipping alliances at the merge. Those three things have never come up before in 30 seasons.
Would that sway you, Rob? Final, tribal council. You're figuring out who to vote for. What does the historical allegory do for you? Is that a definitive for you?
There is no historical allegory that will sway a person's vote at tribal council. The thing that would sway a person's vote at tribal council, from what we've seen, is like new information that came to light, like something like, oh, by the way, I heard, Mike, isn't it true that you told me that you said Sierra was the next one out and she's not really in the alliance? Isn't that true?
Right.
That's the kind of thing like, oh, well, this is new information to me. It's not like, this is actually a lot like the War of 1812. And if you think about it that way, then this really is a continuation of some of the conflict from the American Revolution.
So you're saying it doesn't behoove new contestants to brush up on their American history?
Yeah, I would just stick to what is happening in Nicaragua and not try to paint any, like, it might be good TV, but it's not going to really sway anybody in what's happening at Tribal Council. Anyway, so I'll speak with Haley tomorrow, and then we'll do our big recap podcast, which somebody told me today that that show needs a name. It needs a special name to call it. So we're open to suggestions.
Rob's second most important Survivor podcast?
Yes. We're going to speak with your good friend of mine, Sophie Clark.
Oh, she's great.
Podcast.
I love Sophie.
Yes, one of the great
podcast
guests.
Yeah. She's great. She knows she's got such game. Sophie does not get enough credit for a masterful game, and I will say this about Sophie. I've said it before. Whenever I play a board game against Sophie, she consistently. It's close. She very often wins. She has a will to winning, and I think that's what sets her apart, and I think that's what sets a lot of these winners apart. You see with Mike, he is willing. And it sounds sort of hippy dippy, but like. He's playing harder. He's willing it more.
He's working hard.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk about everything going on with Mike as well. But speaking of Mike, so our guest for the voicemail will be Mike Bloom, another hard-working guy.
Oh, my God, the Survivor historian, Mike Bloom.
Yeah, so Mike Bloom will be my guest for the Survivor voicemail. So get your voicemails in for tomorrow at robbinswebsite.com/voicemail and 323-282 RHAP. Recording those a little earlier in the day than I normally do, so don't wait around. Early bird gets the worm. The hard-working people get their voicemails in the show. Yeah. Those are the people that get on the show because they're working hard, getting voicemails in.
Yeah.
All right, Steven, let's talk about it tonight. All right, so Haley is the person voted off from the no-collar grouping. Do you think that was the right call, as opposed to a little bit of debate of Haley versus Shireen?
So here's it's the right call. Obviously, is the right call for whom, right? I mean, are we talking Haley versus Shireen for the Blue Collar Alliance, or are we talking Haley versus Dan? I think it's the right call, right?
I agree.
That group of Jen and Haley was super strong. Shireen is on the outside of that. Shireen, for whatever reason, people seem to really hate. And that's the kind of person you want in this game, someone who people really hate. Whereas, I was really surprised when, we'll talk about it, I'm sure, when Joe picks all the swing votes to go and reward, he leaves Jen and Haley behind. That's dangerous. That can blow up in your face, but I think because that threesome is so solid, because he's leaving two people behind and not one, he can do that. And isolating, kind of breaking up that tripod, as Mike puts it, I think is a really strong maneuver.
I have to say I was a little thrown off by the edit tonight because, and I guess kudos to the editors for keeping me on my toes. I didn't think Haley had enough screen time tonight to go home.
I thought early in the episode I agreed. Like she was, she's had a few big episodes, and this one she kind of receded. I thought, Shireen had a lot of screen time. Dan certainly did. Mike.
Yeah. I really thought, based on the edit, I thought Dan was going home. That Dan was shown to us to be kind of a jerk throughout the episode. We saw him berating Shireen. We saw his goofs during the immunity challenge when he thought he had it. And we also saw him a little bit during the blue-collar strategy session. And so then when Dan's name comes up as the person that all the girls are going to go for, I said, oh, okay, I get it. It's Dan. But I was certainly thrown off because I just felt like they didn't give us enough reason to believe that Haley was going out based on just the screen time in this episode. She really doesn't have a confessional until late in the episode.
And I was all ready to give Shireen the fishy because she's the one who kind of prompts those Dan conversations. You know, she prompts it with some of the girls. She prompts it with Tyler. She's the one who's kind of trying to sell this. And maybe it's such that she doesn't have enough equity. Let's talk about it, Rob. What do you think of the Haley versus Dan for the key swing votes, Tyler and Carolyn?
Okay. Yeah, for Tyler and Carolyn, the only thing that made me say, boy, I don't know if this is going to work. We know that Carolyn and Shireen, there's no love lost. We heard from Shireen's perspective tonight that she doesn't even want to go on the reward with Carolyn. Yeah. So that's sort of a detriment to Shireen's game at this point, the fact that she's not been able to mend that fence with Carolyn. And had Carolyn and Shireen had a better relationship, I think that really would have helped. Like, I feel like Tyler was legitimately on the fence about which way to go. I think that Shireen made a compelling case to Tyler about why he should jump. But I have a feeling Tyler went back to Carolyn and said, hey, what do you think about this? And Carolyn was like, no, screw Shireen. I'm not going with her.
What about this possibility, which is that the Rodney foursome is what's keeping Tyler and Carolyn loyal? That obviously for Tyler and Carolyn, like, why are you sticking with this big blue collar alliance? Like, you're at the bottom of this alliance. But Rodney keeps on affirming with them that, hey, it's you, as Rodney says, Will, Rodney, Carolyn, and Tyler are a strong foursome. We're going to flip at 7. If I'm Tyler and Carolyn, I'm like, this is the greatest possible situation for them, right? Like, to be up against Rodney and Will, like, could you pick 2 people who you'd rather be up against at the Final Four?
Yeah, but since when is Tyler in the Rodney foursome? That Kelly was in the in the Rodney foursome. Like, I don't even think we've seen a conversation between Tyler and Rodney.
But Rodney listed him in the start of the episode. He said,
yeah, that's sort of crazy to me because Tyler wasn't in the foursome in the last episode unless he got added in late and it was a 5-some before Kelly got voted out.
We know Carolyn and Tyler are super tight. This doesn't.
But it's a secret alliance that I can't imagine that Carolyn said, okay, let me bring in Tyler also to our alliance. I mean, maybe she did.
I mean, it seems to have happened, right? I mean, you know that it's like a highly edited show. We don't see everything that happens.
Yeah, but is it possible that Rodney is one of the people that doesn't know basic math? That he talks about he has 4, but maybe is he still counting Kelly? I mean, we don't have any evidence to support that Tyler.
He said Tyler.
He did say Tyler?
He said Tyler, yeah.
Okay.
He said Mama C, Tyler, Will, and me are at 7. And we're gonna.
I don't know. I'm not putting too much stock in what Rodney is doing. I think that do Tyler and Carolyn look at it in like the poker game of this is another one of their outs that could potentially work out as a alliance to go for? I think so, but I can't imagine that would be the biggest factor keeping them loyal to that group.
I mean, I agree that like Rodney, like to us as a character, is kind of like oafish, but like to them, if this guy is committed to flipping at 7, like that's just math, right? Like you're sitting there, you're like, what is our way to the end? There's 2 of us. How are we possibly going to gain a majority? These blue collar guys have 5. These no collar people have 3 with Shireen. That's 4. Inherently they're small. They have to find that way in. And you might be able to argue, like, well, you should flip to the no-callers. You're a bigger proportion of that alliance. If you can pull Shireen back, which we know they can't, to your point about Shireen and Carolyn hitting each other. So I think that the Rodney thing might be a bigger deal for them than we even know.
Yeah, I really can't speak to it. I just don't know. But as far as Tyler,
it might be fan fiction.
It might be a little bit of the old.
Fan fiction. I'm like a storyteller. That's what I do.
But I will say, as far as Tyler and Carolyn go, I'm pretty on board with what they did tonight because I don't really see the sense if you're Tyler or Carolyn to let's go jump in and let's be sort of the fifth and sixth wheel on the girl power alliance with, you know, Haley, Jen, Sierra, Shireen. Potentially, I guess Joe would be with the Girl Power Alliance, and then Tyler and Carolyn. It's just like, where do they fit in there?
Right. I mean, I totally agree with you. There's yeah. I mean, what there's no spot. It's hard for them. They gotta like pick their flip at just the right moment. So
Yeah.
Do you think they're doing the right thing? You think that this is the right move for them?
Yeah. Overall, was it a good night for Tyler and Carolyn? I'll say it was. I think
it was. I mean, yeah. What do you? So do you want to? I mean, is now the right time to start talking about the Idol, or am I jumping the gun here?
Well, let's talk about it in a second. I just want to talk through one more aspect of it. For Sierra, was this the right move for Sierra, or does she ultimately want to go with them and then pulls out because they don't have the votes? So you had what? You had the three women of Jen, Haley, Sierra, plus Joe. That's 4, right? And then with Sierra, that's only 5. So they still need one more person. Do you think that Sierra was on board, and because she knows they don't have a 6th, that she ultimately pulls back?
I mean, I honestly like Sierra's best path is with Mike and Dan, right? Like that seems to me like she's got that solid 3 right there. If she's trying to get to a finals, and says Dan is hated, and Mike is, he's been blindsiding all of you. Like maybe she thinks she's going to get the bitter vote.
Yeah, but is the history of the game one in which somebody could just go to the end with just 2 people that sucked and who didn't do anything? Like, I mean, she really can't argue any point as to why she should get the votes. In that instance, I don't think that person does win. And I know that there's a couple of people are probably screaming, well, what about Natalie White? I think that you could argue Natalie White did way more in her season than Sierra has done to this point. Natalie White, Stephen Fishback, won, I believe, not 1 but 2 fishies in Survivor Samoa.
Yeah.
How many does Sierra have?
I mean, none so far, but I mean, maybe a group fishy she may have been a part of. But I think that the difference is though, like I think everyone is so much the hero of their own story that everyone is like in their mind is like the best, right? Like everyone in their mind, or many people in their mind, think to themselves, I'm going to win. I've got a compelling narrative. All these people really like me. They don't like Dan. This person likes me more than he likes Mike. And so I think that I remember this podcast you did with Danielle DiLorenzo years ago around Heroes versus Villains time, and she was talking about how she was manipulating everyone and how Russell was her pawn and Parvati was her pawn. So like everyone's the hero of their story, and like Sierra might be the hero of her story.
Yeah. What a great reference. We'll have to put a link to that in the show notes.
I mean, it was clearly formative.
I want to say it was either Survivor Nicaragua or Survivor Redemption Island, the Danielle DiLorenzo podcast. Fun chat. The DanielleDiLorenzo.com is the place to go for fat-free salads. So let's talk about the Idol stuff. Let's talk about these Idol shenanigans, Steven.
This was one of my favorite scenes in the history of the show, and
wow.
The favorite sequences. Yes, I thought this was so great, just from start to finish, with the way the Idol clue went down, with the way that these 3 people were sort of like, facing off against each other, and all 3 of them were doing such a great job from start to finish. I loved it. I loved it.
All right, let's take it piece by piece. Stephen Fishback, is an immunity Idol clue in a bottle of soda a choking hazard? And should the Survivor producers be more careful?
I couldn't believe that. What had happened? I mean, what's unbelievable, I mean, I don't know. I mean, would you think if you're drinking a bottle of soda, like you're not going to notice you
Yeah,
know,
that's bizarre to me. How could Carolyn not notice what's going on? That you have a soda, and it wasn't like she was drinking a Coke, something that was like a dark colored soda. She's drinking like a Sierra Mist type thing, a clear soda. How do you not notice what's in there? That Joe is seeing it from across. I don't know. Are you in such a frenzy because you're eating food that you don't even notice there's something floating in your drink?
I know. I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. And like, what happens if she? I mean, it's a totally different thing if she. And it's such a testament to Joe how coolly he handles it. You know,
Joe Cool.
Joe Cool, indeed. He says he doesn't even say, "Hey, Carolyn, can I have your soda?" He says, I'm still kind of thirsty. I kind of want more soda." And she
I wish I
offers it.
had more soda.
I wish I had more
He
soda.
wished for it, and
And-
wishes come true.
For when you're Joe Beautiful, you know, your wishes do come true. I mean, it was so chill, and he like inceptions her to like give him the soda, and like
Wished for it.
yeah, and she does, and then you know, and even though you know he sort of screws up the attempt to palm it with his mouth. Tyler notices. Tyler doesn't say a word. You know, would anyone else there have not said a word? I don't know. I mean, Shireen would have been like, oh, you know, she would have been her typical ebullient self, right?
You would think so. It was very coolly handled by both Joe and Tyler. And then I like that Tyler didn't say anything and sort of kept it to himself. And then we end up having the situation where Joe and Tyler then the following morning then go out to look for the idol. But what they don't realize is that Mike is on a stakeout.
I was so great. I mean, I also like just the way that Tyler communicated that information. He said something like, "You drank all the soda. We'll have to talk about that later. I'll have to scold you for that." Yeah.
Whoa.
I thought that was so good. Just like dropping the hint, we're gonna have to talk about this. You know, then he waits for him. He like sits up waiting for him. Meanwhile, Mike is sitting up waiting for both of them. Like it was just such great. Like you're not as giddy as I am.
I'm giddy. You're especially giddy. You seem like you woke up on the giddy side of the bed today. You seem extremely giddy about this. I feel like Tyler was probably sitting there and like watching across the way as Carolyn is drinking it. I think he's seeing the thing and Carolyn's drinking and he's like waiting to go over by Carolyn when he has.
Oh, you think Tyler knew?
I think Tyler probably saw because he's sitting from a similar vantage point
Right.
that Joe is. Tyler's
Right.
waiting to go across and powwow with his buddy Carolyn and say, hey.
Yeah.
There's an immunity idol clue in your soda.
Right.
And then Joe's like, oh, I wish I had more soda. And Carolyn's like, here, take my soda. And it's like, I'm going to have to scold you for that.
Yeah.
So I think he's annoyed about that. Okay, so then they go and they watch it. And then here is Mike who goes ninja stealth mode.
Yeah.
And is would you call that, dare I say, a spy shack that Mike is bringing?
Do you think it's possible now to play Survivor well and not hide in trees? Like you have to hide in I think the new winning strategy is hide in foliage.
Yeah. See, Tony always had his spy shacks on sort of ground level.
Yeah.
Mike has taken it to a new level of that he is going for the second story spy shack, which is good because I think you have much higher visibility.
You got a better vantage, but like getting into the tree, it's unbelievable to me just that. I mean, I'm trying to think of my season. I can't imagine spying on someone from a
tree?
From a vent. I can't imagine sneaking up on anybody. Could you think you could have snuck up on someone?
No, but if I ever play Survivor again, Steven, I'm going to wear all camouflage so I can just
Wear a ghillie suit if you're next time you're
Yeah, I'm going to go full camouflage so
Yeah.
I can just sort of hide in the trees the whole entire game.
That's to be your luxury item is the full bush ghillie suit.
I will affix leaves to my shirt
Yeah.
the whole game. So I would just make a Spy Shack shirt.
Yeah.
I can go through the game. All right, so Mike stakes them out, and then Mike ultimately watches what's going on. Do you think that Mike should have been more suspect of Tyler after this?
Well, that was another interesting interaction that I loved too, and that was part of why I loved this so much. Was that that was just another perfect play, I thought, from both of them. You know, you got Mike and Tyler facing off, and Mike says nothing. And this is my favorite play in the game, is the saying nothing. And you've seen a lot of really good strategists do that in these conversations. You don't say a thing, and you wait for the other person to tell you everything. And I think that's so powerful and so cool. And then I thought Tyler handled it perfectly, too. I thought Tyler said that what he said was, you know, he really laid it all out. And it was like he acted as though, of course, he was always going to give Mike this information because he didn't want to alienate Mike. I thought it was great.
See, I didn't think Tyler handled it perfectly because what ultimately ended up happening for Tyler, ultimately it ends up with Mike being in possession of the idol. And I know it's very hard to think fast on your feet, and probably it's better that I think there's 3 outcomes that can happen in that situation. One is you just panic and tell the truth, which is what happened. The second is you panic and lie badly. That's the worst case scenario.
That's the so scenario?
That's the Judd in Guatemala who says, look, I'm telling you, the idol clue says it's definitely not on the, it's definitely on the ground. Where the immunity clue says that the idol is not on the ground.
Right.
But he comes out and says it's definitely on the ground, man. And then the third thing is if you come up with a lie and it's a good one.
Yeah.
So that's the best case scenario. He ends up with just telling the truth, but he still comes off looking a little sneaky because Mike saw him. Mike watched what happened. So it's not a great outcome for Tyler, for somebody who had been playing the situation pretty well.
But Mike is so meta Survivor, right? He had that we all know how to tickle someone's ear. You know, like for Mike, like banging the game, playing the game is, you know, it's like that's what he just expects people to be aggressive and to be strategic. You know, so I don't think Mike is going to think less of Tyler, or even necessarily think Tyler is duplicitous, because he knows Tyler's duplicitous. You know, like he knows that Tyler's playing a hard game.
But he's got to know, vice versa, that Tyler is not in Mike's inner circle. I think Tyler knows that, and Mike knows that.
Right.
So what is the benefit for Tyler? It's for Mike to have the idol.
I mean, the benefit for Tyler of telling Mike the clue is that then Mike, you know, then it does like a firm trust.
Yeah, for a minute.
Yeah. But I mean, I certainly don't see a benefit for Mike having the idol. Now, what did you think of Mike's decision to tell everyone that Joe had the idol?
Well, there's some good and there's some bad to it. We've seen in Survivor that, belief somebody has the idol can at times be just as powerful as somebody actually having the idol.
Right.
The perception can be a big deal. If you fake that you have the idol, it can sort of stop people from voting for you. Now, Mike would be the one to know the information. So, but then again, does the threat that Joe has an idol, then at some point, if he tells them that Joe doesn't have the idol, then does it remove the threat that he is a threat? But the fact that he's winning all these challenges ultimately does. So I don't know exactly what it does for Mike that Joe's already a threat. To put it out there that Joe has the idol, I guess the one benefit it does is keeps the heat off of Mike that Mike actually found the idol. And like he
said it before he found it, right? So he basically shut down other people looking for it by saying that Joe had found it. I mean, I agree. Joe doesn't need to be more of a threat, and this actually makes it harder to vote Joe out because people are going to be like, well, we don't want to vote for him because he's got the idol. I mean, we've seen that happen a lot where you spread a rumor that someone has the idol and it ends up biting you in the butt.
Yes. Now, Stephen, I do just have to go back to a couple of weeks ago, and I actually agree with Rodney about this. When Mike had the opportunity, they threw the challenge, and Joe's head was on a platter. Mike said, let me keep Joe around and let me vote off Joaquin. Joaquin is the threat. I can't have Joaquin and Rodney working together. And now here we are. Joe is the threat. Joe's on an immunity run. Now, God knows he can't keep it going all this way.
It's the final 11. He's got a long way to go.
He's got a long way to go, but every week he's buying himself more time and buying himself more chances to try to get this insurgency going. If Joaquin was around at the merge, what threat would Joaquin be right now?
But I think that's totally the problem, which is that, Mike says it. When Joe is gone, I'm going to need something in my back pocket or I'm next. I stand by this. Joe being in the game is the best thing that could happen to
Then
Mike.
why does he want to vote him out? If
You've
Joe
got
didn't win immunity this week, would Joe have gotten the votes?
Yeah. I think that it's like...
Which is it? Does he want him gone or does he want him to stay?
I think he wants people focused on him. And I think that, like, it's a hard thing, right? Like, I think he wants people focused on him. It's good for him if he stays. And, obviously, ultimately, he wants him gone. And I think Mike is smart enough to know that when he's got a chance to eliminate him, he's got to take it because someone, you might not get that chance twice. But I think it's good for him when Joe sticks around, and I think it'll be good, but scary for him when Joe goes, because then it's like, who do we take out next? Who's the next big threat? And people do have this like obsessive focus where they're not going to be like, our two threats are Joe and Mike. It's like, Joe is our threat. We must target Joe.
Yeah, I don't disagree that Joe being in the game is inherently a good thing for Mike. I don't think that Aris wins in Survivor Panama if Terry Dietz isn't around.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Continue to win.
Yeah.
Even if at the time, Aris is saying we got to take out Terry, and Joe continuing to win does provide a lot of cover for Mike to operate in this game. Mike's never going to be the biggest threat in the game as long as Joe is still there.
I mean, that's exactly right. I think that's exactly right. I think the Terry, and I think the Tony Spencer thing. Keep going. I think the Terry Aris thing is perfect. And I think the Tony Spencer thing is another example where like Tony is so obviously the threat, but everyone was like, well, we got to get Spencer out. We can't let Spencer get to the end.
Yeah. All right. Let's just bounce around with a couple more things from this episode. Let's just talk about Dan and why is Dan just yelling at Shireen? What is Shireen doing that is irritating Dan so much?
Can you explain the whole like salami thing to me? I rewound that to watch it again because I could not figure out what they were upset about.
First of all, I don't even understand why they have like a lifetime supply of salami.
Like cured meats. Yeah, what the heck?
I get presumably left over from the merge feast. I don't know why they have so much. On our season, we had food from the merge, and then they were like, yeah, tomorrow we're taking everything away.
Yeah, they took our merge food too. I don't know why these guys get salami.
Yeah, they get to keep it forever, a lifetime supply of salami, and I don't know who wants to chew on it. I don't know. But we have this scene where Shireen and Dan are talking, and it's one thing if Dan is telling us at home.
Right.
It's like,
her game's done.
Shireen is so annoying. That's why she's going to be the most. She's never going to have an idol. Why he's telling Shireen this, I will never understand.
I think, he's trying to pressure her to flip in the best way he knows, and he's trying to, shame her, right?
Yeah, I mean, is there a good cop who is off screen that we are not seeing? And
I'm not saying he's doing a good job. I'm just saying that's what he's doing.
Shireen, I'm telling you, your ass is grass. You're done for. Nobody's giving you an idol on that team. You suck. You're terrible. And it maybe is there off to the side that maybe Sierra is there like he doesn't mean that, he's just excited. I'm telling you, come with us, you never have to worry about him, I won't let him touch you. I don't know. He's insane. And what is he talking about? That is just another super fan that doesn't know how to count.
I loved that because that was like every season you and I are like, can you believe these guys? They don't know how to count. We got Matt Quinlan in whatever that season in One World. We had But
who's the super fan that doesn't know how to count?
Oh, God. I mean, I feel there's so many people who don't know how to count, and I thought that's what sort of Dan was referencing. There's always, someone who's just
Brad Culpepper?
Certainly Culpepper didn't know math. Jeff Kent maybe. There's been so many in recent seasons of people. Oh, even on the fans tribe in Fans versus Favorites too, they couldn't count. And they were fans, right, Rob? We all know they were huge fans.
I just don't think that big fans of the show don't know how to count isn't a thing. As much as Dan insists that it is, I don't believe that is a thing.
Maybe it was Max. Maybe Max didn't know how to count.
Did Max not know how to count?
Yeah.
I think you could say, okay, super fans go on the show and are irritating. That's a thing. Super fans go on the show and don't know how to count. I don't believe that's a thing.
Well, Reynolds.
Correct me if I'm wrong, chat room.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. All right. So then we get to Dan doing the puzzle. and not once but twice somebody does the puzzle and is incorrect. Have we seen this before, Steven?
I mean, I'm sure we've seen puzzles being solved incorrectly, but a slide puzzle, it's not like a, excuse me, get worked up about this. Yeah, this episode's got me sneezing.
You're allergic to Dan.
Yeah.
All right, so Dan makes a big point at Tribal Council. 3 words: flippers never win.
I stand by that. I'm with Dan on that.
You stand by that, Steven. All right. Well, I just went a flip through my mental Rolodex real quick.
Oh, the Tony's a good example. Shireen's example of Tony was perfect.
He's wrong. All right. So what do we constitute a flipper? In my mind, a flipper is somebody who votes against their pre-merge alliance at the merge.
Oh my God! But that's such a specific pre-merge alliance. I mean, if you've got it.
Not pre-merge alliance. Your tribe. You vote against your tribe when you get to the merge. Is that not the definition of a flipper?
I mean, but swaps complicate things. Are we talking about how does this work with a swap?
Okay. Let's talk about it. Okay. Parvati in Fans versus Favorites, is she a flipper?
I mean, the thing about Parvati is she created her own cross-tribal alliance. So for her to vote out someone like Ozzy, isn't her flipping on Ozzy. It's her, she's built an alliance.
How is that not her flipping on Ozzy?
Because, I mean, it's her, but I think there's a difference between flipping from the bottom of one alliance to another building an alliance and taking out the people around you.
Okay. Sandra in Heroes versus Villains, does she not flip against the villains?
She actually fails to flip against the villains. Sandra consistently votes with the villains. If you watch that season, she votes with the villains almost every tribal council, if not every tribal council.
So does a flipper not win that season?
Apparently. If she wanted to flip, they just wouldn't let her.
Okay. What about Tyson in Blood versus Water?
So you're saying anyone who votes out anyone who is ever allied with them is thereby a flipper? I mean, it's going to be everybody.
If you flipped against your pre-merge alliance, are you not a flipper?
At some point, you have to vote out people in the game to win. But I think there's a difference between flipping on an alliance versus blindsiding. I don't know. I don't know. It all becomes so academic at a certain point.
Okay. All right. But I think that it is not a true statement to say flippers never win.
And Shireen's example of Tony was the perfect rebuttal.
Okay. Very well stated, Shireen.
Yeah.
All right. Steven, anything else that you want to touch on before we open this up to questions?
No. I can't think of anything I want to touch on.
All right, good. Well, very fun episode, very fun season so far, and looking forward to continuing it. Next week, we are going to be – I'm taking the show on the road, Steven. I'm going to be in Las Vegas next week.
I can't wait.
Pending the connectivity in my hotel room in Vegas.
Yeah.
I did a lot of research. I think everything should be good. I want to test it once I get there. But barring any unforeseen problems, I will be joining you next week from Las Vegas for the New Media Expo and Podcast Awards, which I will be attending next week.
I cannot wait, Rob. I'm so excited for you to win every freaking award.
Every freaking award. All right, well, we'll see. Don't get too excited yet. Don't count those chickens before they hatch.
You're like the Joe of podcast awards.
All right, let's go ahead. Well, hopefully I'm not going to choke on my soda. That's my biggest concern. All right, let's take a question from Nick2S. Was Dan gaining anything from his conversation with Shireen besides the scorn of millions of Americans?
I think Mike was gaining something from Dan's conversation with Shireen. I think Mike does great the more that they hate Dan. I think maybe Dan thought he was gonna flip Shireen, or maybe they were just hanging out. They were in the freaking water, and then there was a camera crew nearby, and they were Dan was like, well, I guess I should try to convince her to strategize.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt like this was such a bad look for Dan because he says to her basically, his closing statements are there's 2 types of people in this game. 1, the people that don't say anything, and 2, the people who say so much it gets them voted out.
I think that's not true. I think that's a false dichotomy. I think there's actually many more types of people in this game.
Yeah, but of those 2 people, if I told you to pick one to describe Dan, what would you pick? Well, how would you describe Dan?
I think he might be the one who does too much and annoys people and gets voted out.
Yeah, and he's saying to her, like, you're just a number. You're just a number. You're Joe's patsy. You're nothing. And it's like he's like one of these like self-loathing people that the very thing he hates about Shireen is the thing that's completely true about himself.
Wow, just a number, patsy. I think he's Jervising though. I think he's like the number 2 that we're sort of not seeing as much of because we're seeing so much of Mike. But
Who's
it's like
in an
a crucial
unwinnable
part.
game?
Sorry?
Who's in an unwinnable position?
He's in an unwinnable position, but he's also a vital part of the winning team in a way that we're not seeing.
In what way is he a vital part of the
I
team?
think having a strong sidekick is really important.
Like JT was to you?
Yeah, exactly.
strong sidekick?
Yeah, having a strong, exactly right.
All right. I just like he's in a similar position to Shireen. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kyle B.
Oh yeah, Kyle B wants to know, when are we going to see the big twist? This is something that it's unbelievable to me that there's another big twist. Like, what is that? What could that possibly be?
I don't know. That I think it could be the week that Joe doesn't win immunity, that they're going to add in the second place immunity necklace. Where, all right, if second place also, we just announced is going to win immunity also.
It's got to be something like that, right? I really can't even imagine, unless it's like what about an unmerge? The unmerge?
An unmerge? I mean, I used to say that, boy, I really would love, they should merge the tribes and then they could unmerge the tribes. But the couple of times that they've done that, something like that, in my rewatch of Survivor, I didn't like how it played out. Either like they do it in Fiji, where they sort of have a vote where after they're merged, they sort of like, okay, you're just going to, they break the tribes into 2 arbitrary groups, and then whoever loses immunity has to go to tribal council with some random group. And I believe Michelle goes out in an unfair way there. And then in Gabon, I don't really love that they did like a fake out merge, but then they sort of like redid the tribes into, and I didn't love that either.
Yeah, it's never great. The merge is really where the action of the episode is.
Yeah, we're in the merge, baby. It's merge. It's merge time. This is what we've been waiting for. Don't unmerge me.
Do you think the big twist could be Rupert coming back?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. But who will take over his Twitter account?
I'm willing. I'm willing to step in.
All right.
Johnny Horseman wants to know, how does Dan not know Shireen's name when he's been in the game with her for like 20 days? This flummoxes me so much. Like, nobody seems to be able to learn Shireen's name.
Yeah, it's just like, and he talks about her with such disdain, and it's not a good look for Dan, because it's an unusual name, and like his failure to learn how to pronounce it like speaks again to me. It's almost like shorthand for intolerance of not being willing to learn her name.
Yeah, I guess that's right. I mean, I think that's right.
It's not a good look. It's
but
not
then,
good.
Rodney can't learn. No one seems to be able to learn her name, which is just like, it's not that hard. Read Game of Thrones, people.
Why?
There's a Princess Shireen in Game of Thrones.
The hard names to pronounce?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to JJ Rules. What is Joe's kryptonite?
I think Joe's kryptonite is Joe. I think it's that he's so great that no one will ever let him win. It's that he's so good at all the challenges, so handsome, so charming, that he is no good for the game.
Is Joe peaking too soon, Steven?
We're at peak Joe.
Peak Joe? So but would you say that is peak Joe too early?
I just think that Joe is inherently, like, he's one of these people who is so great that he just can't win.
So great he can't win.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, like, he's like Malcolm 1.0, right? And Malcolm 1.0 actually, he almost made it. Like, so what are the differences between Malcolm and Joe?
Difference between Malcolm and Joe, I think that Joe is better at the challenges than Malcolm, with all due respect to Mr. Survivor 2014. I think that Malcolm did win some challenges in Philippines, but Malcolm's track record is not nearly as impressive as what Joe is able to do. Joe is more Ozzy-esque in challenges than Malcolm, except his social game is probably comparable to Malcolm's.
And strategic.
Yes, that he is he's almost, dare I say, he's like if you put Malcolm's brain in Ozzy's body, which is terrifying.
It's terrifying to think of. I think Malcolm was also helped because he was in Mat Singh, and Mat Singh did so badly that people were they just didn't think of them as a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Joe is a no caller. He's got these he's got these groupies. He's got these I think Joe is more threatening because of the alliance situation.
Yeah, he's seen as a leader and somebody who has numbers where Malcolm was not seen as that in Survivor Philippines. Let's take this question, and it's a little bit of a long question. Dan is right. This is from Guy Smiley. Dan is right. You have to know basic math to win. I realize that there are 3 types of people who play Survivor. Those that can count, those that can't.
Yeah. ...
I'm
laughing.
Long way to go for that joke. I wonder if Dan counts jury votes before he berates people.
This is interesting in terms of the super fan who is not that nice to people. But I don't think Dan knows he's not being that nice, right? Like when he went to apologize to Sierra, he also was not that nice to her, but he thought he was being nice.
Yes, when he said this.
Just close your mouth, open your ears, and just watch what happens.
Just watch what happens.
Watch what happens live.
Yeah, and so is Dan considering the jury votes? I don't know. I can't get inside Dan's head.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I really think maybe he thinks he's like giving her friendly advice and that she's going to appreciate it. And then he's like, someone needs to slap this woman. Like you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Not sure about that.
Yeah.
Zach Kennedy wants to know why exactly did Joe stop looking for the idol once Mike acted like Joe found it?
Well, that's hard to speak to. We really can't tell what happened. Did Joe continue to look for the idol for hours on end after Mike said he had it?
He said he wanted to sit back and pretend that he had it rather than keep looking. And I think there's something to that, right? Where like Joe, let's say Joe is not certain he's going to find the idol, like to pretend you have it, like for him gives him a lot of the ancillary benefit.
Yeah. We had a similar situation to this in Survivor Karamoan where Malcolm can't find the idol. Andrea is sort of stalking him and watching what he's doing. Eventually, Malcolm just has to pretend that he has the idol.
Right.
And Joe's in that position, and maybe he feels like, okay, well, maybe after the dust settles a little bit, I can get back out there and look for the idol.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I think that's probably exactly right.
All right, let's take some more questions. What about this one from Petite Chew Pumpkin?
Shouldn't Sierra stick with the blue collar solely for having amazing Final 3 potential with Rodney and Dan? Yeah, I think so.
What's the plan to get rid of Mike, Sierra? I mean, how are you pulling that off?
I think at Final you're thinking like, oh, Final Four, we're taking that Mike. He's the big threat.
But if Sierra has no real allies on that side who want to take her to the end, unless you're telling me she's going on a Danny Boatwright-esque run here, I don't know what she's doing.
But don't you think that if the Final Four were the 4 blue collars, Sierra, Mike, Dan, and Rodney, that the 3 of them are going to vote out Mike?
Sierra,
just hypothetical.
Mike, Dan, and Rodney. I just in a perfect world. Maybe I just don't see any feasible way that that's the Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I just think maybe that's her plan. Is like blue collar strong.
I don't want to kill Sierra for not leaping. We've established that they didn't have the numbers if they don't have Carolyn and Tyler. She's just got to wait for the right opportunity to get in with something else that's going on. The numbers didn't work out for her this week, but I think she's drawing dead if she goes along with that group. I think that. You might have a situation where everybody there is that self-interested to take out Mike at the end, but I think if Mike gets to the end with his inner circle, I feel like they're going to keep him.
Maybe.
We'll see. All right, let's go with Ryan Noakes, who says, does it bother you guys with the producers bringing up how much these contestants are fans of Survivor? That has come up quite a bit. And, Steven, this was something we talked about at length the week that Max Dawson went home, where Max Dawson, we felt like, was edited badly that he was a Survivor fan. And we talked about the topic of, is Survivor sort of a self-loathing entity where Survivor depicts its most ardent fans negatively as, hey, look, these are the nerds here that are on this show.
That's really interesting. That's a really great point. Is that it sort of does. It's like people who know Survivor super well are, but there is this. I think the level. Right, we're talking about like knowing what level of what the astrological signs are of the different winners. And it's also not a question of knowing it; it's a question of sharing it. And I think that in terms of what a true fan of Survivor knows, it's that you don't always show that you're a true fan of Survivor.
Yeah. So do you think that Survivor depicts people who are obsessed with Survivor in a negative or positive light?
Maybe it's overall negative. It's interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah, I mean it's the equivalent of, and I think this came up of William Shatner telling Trekkies to get a life at a point. It's an interesting discussion. But you can know a lot about Survivor and come off as cool dudes, though, like on this show, right?
Like us, we're such cool dudes.
We don't come off as too nerdy, right?
Our initial name for this podcast was the Two Cool Dudes.
All right, A New Future says, at what point does someone in that group of 7 break away from the pack?
I think it's at 7, right? It's at 7. It's that Rodney, Carolyn, Tyler, Will, potential foursome.
So you think that this group of 10 goes by the book completely, and you think in some combination the next 3 votes are Shireen, Joe, and Jen?
No, I mean probably not. Let's be honest. That's probably not going to happen, right? Like we've been told it's a good season. It's not a good season if you're just getting the straight pagonging. So I'm thinking that we're probably going to get something. Something's going to mix up in the next vote or two.
All right, so there were 11 people at this vote. There'll be 10 people next week. Do you think a swing happens next week, or do you think that it's more likely to happen the following week at 9?
Maybe. I mean, honestly, I wonder if getting rid of Haley has kind of taken the legs out from this perception of this Joe alliance. Maybe it's next week.
It could be next week.
Yeah.
We see. Big moves do happen at 10, but they are more likely to happen at the odd numbers, so we will see. I believe the Jeremy Collins vote last season happened at 10.
Yeah.
So definitely we could see big things happen at even numbers. Tim Marzulu says, does anyone see Shireen as the GOAT at the end getting no votes?
I think it's not impossible. Why vote Shireen out, right? Everyone seems to hate her. She's not gonna, she's not really winning any challenges. So, I think that why would you waste the vote basically? No offense to Shireen, who I think is a great character and obviously such a huge fan of the game. But right, wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be targeting Shireen right now. She has few allies. She's not a threat. And she's somebody that is, at this point in the game, for all intents and purposes, she's just a number. And while that's dangerous, it's the same reason why Sandra is able to win the game, and that does make her a threat, but she's not an immediate threat. She's almost in the position like a Cass, where she's there and she's able to be a number on your side, but you're not really afraid she's going to win immunity until she does at the Final Four.
Right.
But she's not. There's bigger fish to fry, and that's the biggest thing working in her favor right now.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it was interesting that they even thought about voting her out, and I guess it is the fact that she's with that other alliance. Shireen says, "I have plans." I'm curious what those plans are. Do you think Shireen's plan is sticking with that no-collar alliance?
I think that Shireen's plan is to sort of, figure out who's on the bottom on the other side and offer herself as a number when it gets down to it.
That's the move.
When they're down to 7 people, 8 people, say, hey, you guys want to vote with me? And then we'll vote against Mike. We'll vote against the guys at the top and create something else. But her biggest thing right now, if I could quantum leap and talk to Shireen in the game right now, I'd say, Shireen, swallow your pride. Make things right with Carolyn. It doesn't matter who's right and who's wrong. Make peace with Carolyn if you want a shot at turning this thing around.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you didn't get Carolyn bemoaning, the inclusion of Shireen. Carolyn was saying, smart move by Joe to take the 4 of us.
Yeah. Oh boy, Steven, I can't believe we went this long without talking about it. Loved Joe's picks for
Oh
the
yeah, it
reward
was
challenge.
perfect. It was really great.
Yeah, we talk about it time after time, and we often debate how important it is to take the people that are your allies with you on these things, because can you alienate your allies? I do think for the most part you're better off taking the people who are the potential swing votes with you, and sort of like leaving your alliances, the people that you're cool with, sort of, resting on that, and, don't take it for granted, but,
Yep.
drive home the point that, hey, I had to do this strategically, and after I win the $1 million or you win the $1 million, I'll take you to, we're at Cheesecake Factory, every night for a week.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I really think that it's hard. It is hard because, you see it all the time with the person who's left behind, and they get furious, right? I mean, it was like you see it all the time where the person, and I really think it's a testament to this group of survivors again, with just how, how in the game they are, how knowledgeable they are about the game, and how meta survivor they are. Where they're like, yeah, of course you take the swing votes. And even Carolyn was like, she wasn't swayed by the fact that Joe took her. She like appreciated it as like a game move. It's not working on her emotionally. It's like, yeah, good call. It's like, but it's not actually accomplishing what he wants. It's also meta.
Mm-hmm. You and JT believed to take your ally with you.
Well, I think we found that if you don't take your ally, they can be furious and they can turn on you, and it's like, you've only got the alliance, of your if you can only trust the people who are in your tightest alliance,
including a time when you left when you left Sierra with Debbie and Coach.
Yeah.
At a time when they were trying to flip her over.
It didn't matter if we can get into this. I have a very good defense.
I want to do a Token Tunes podcast.
But that was the move I got the most crap for, and it is actually the move that I stand behind.
All right. Well, I want to talk about it. You, me, and Josh Wigler. We want to talk about it in Revolution Strategy. All right. One last question. Here we go. What does Christopher Bushaw have to say?
Christopher Bushaw has to say, who do you think is the dark horse this season?
Dark horse this season. Who's the dark horse, Steven?
Well, what do you think? This is your turn.
Boy, I would say if I'm going with just like dark horse, as in who's the person who we're not talking a lot about that could potentially win the season, is Tyler officially? Is he a dark horse, or is he too much in the forefront?
Yeah. I mean, my dark horse was going to be Carolyn, and it's Carolyn is actually, I love her. I love her face. I love her confessionals. I love everything about Carolyn.
Everything about Carolyn.
As much as like, Mike is dominating the game, Joe is dominating the game, I just get such a kick out of everything Carolyn says. I don't know what it is. Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say a dark horse because I feel like we're talking a lot about just about every player.
Yeah.
I feel like the people that are not in the mix to potentially win, it's almost easier to say that. I feel like Rodney is drawing dead. Rodney can't win, correct?
Yeah, I think Rodney can't win. Dan
can Will win? Can Will win?
I mean, if he's there with Rodney and Dan.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I feel like Will is sort of drawing dead. I'm not seeing it from him. Is Sierra a dark horse?
Sierra's an interesting. Yeah, Sierra's an interesting contender. She is a dark horse.
Yeah, and Shireen, I feel like is a dark horse, but I just don't know if enough people on the jury potentially like her. It seems like there's some sort of a disconnect where people are not digging Shireen out there.
People really dislike Shireen for whatever reason, and I think that's. Yeah, I think that you can't overcome that. For whatever reason, people start to dislike someone. It's not necessarily their fault, but like, that's the way that the season has gone.
Is Jen in dark horse mode?
But Jen, I feel like Jen is a horse. A lot of people think that Jen is, she's like a light horse. People
light
think
horse.
That,
she had a very under the radar episode after last
did.
Week's big episode where she won a fishy.
Yeah. But she, I think people have long thought that she could very well be the winner of this season.
Okay, Steven, tell me. Who is getting the fishy this week?
I mean, it's obviously
lots of ways
Mike.
to go.
I mean, are there? There's one way to go. It's Mike.
Always lots of ways to go.
Mike gets to the idol, targets Joe. He keeps his alliance together. He gets out Haley. Not only does he get out the person he wants, but his alliance was thinking of targeting Shireen. He chooses Haley. Everything went Mike's way today. I think Mike by a landslide. And I'm going to post my blog in about 30 seconds.
Okay, all right, I agree with you. I think Mike is the person, hands down, who gets the fishy this week.
Who gets the Sesty?
Who played the worst this week?
Yeah.
Boy, for me it's Dan.
Yeah, I think Dan.
I think he's the worst player of the week. Okay.
Yeah.
I also would just say for the Survivor editors, once we start getting the big voiceover montage when somebody's looking for the idol, it's very abundantly clear that person's about to find the immunity idol. Sort of check
but it
out.
does build. I don't think. I mean, the point of the episode is not necessarily to continually fake us out, right? It's to engage us on an emotional journey, and I like it. I like the build. I like the personalization. Like these are the big character personal moments that I think that I love.
Do you agree with Mike's thesis that the person that finds the immunity idol is always the person who's working the hardest?
I think there's something there. I mean, not necessarily always, and it's not necessarily the working the hardest, but I think often it's the person who's playing the hardest is the one who gets the immunity idol.
I don't disagree. I think it's sort of an interesting thesis, and I haven't ever heard it put that way before.
I mean, John Mish certainly last season, I think we can all agree was
yes, what a hard working guy. Yeah, but I think that speaks favorably of Russell Hantz also.
It does, and Russell gets a lot of crap, but he really did a lot.
I think he plays as hard as he possibly can and doesn't leave anything on the sideline.
He plays as hard as he tweets. He leaves it all. He leaves it all out there.
Full tilt. Okay, Steven. All right, great job tonight.
Yeah, great job tonight for me watching the show and for the show itself.
Yes, and you were in such a positive mood tonight.
I loved it. I love this episode. I love that whole scene. I loved it.
Yes, you're Steven Sunshine these days.
Yeah.
Steven Sunshine. All right, Steven. Great job. Looking forward to reading the People blog. Of course, you can see that from Stephen Fishback when he tweets it at Stephen Fishback. Not written in verse this week.
No, it was a one-time stunt. Got a lot of love, a lot of crap for it too.
Crap for it? Why are people giving you crap?
A lot of people are like, "This is hard to read. I'm never reading your blog again." So I want to assure all those people that it will never be that hard to read again. And it is fully nothing rhymes. I think I rhyme like blue with true or something, but accidentally. It was not on purpose.
All right. Of course, we'll get to your voicemails and more on the podcast tomorrow. Big show coming up with Sophie. I'll post questions on Facebook. And then voicemails with Mike Bloom, robbinswebsite.com/voicemail or 323-282-RHAP. Steven, looking forward to talking with you next week.
I'm looking forward to Vegas for Tuesday night. I'm so excited.
Yeah. I hope I'm not drunk during the podcast.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
What happens in Vegas?
What would that be
podcast
like?
To the world.
Yeah. Okay. So Stephen Fishback, great job as well. Thanks everybody for checking us out, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care, everybody.
Bye bye.